Hi, Dennis. So nice to see
Good
you.
morning. Yeah, it's awesome to see you also. It's
You
been a
know,
while.
one thing remarkable about India is we have just got to say namaste. Now, namaste is time neutral because we say namaste in the morning, evening, night. We say namaste to welcome people. We say namaste to say see you again. Isn't that very good for us that we just have to say namaste? But there's a lot of significance in saying namaste. What it really means, the best I know, what I've been taught, is let the divine in me interact with the divine in you. So there's no discussion, there's no argument, it's only dialogue. So that's what namaste, the best I know. I may be wrong anyway. So nice,
Namaste.
namaste. I like a new look because last time when I met you, you had a different look and you look great.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
thanks for being there for me. So you see over here, there's a Dr. M's lounge. I got Kaizen on this side. Uh, is because I'm dedicating the entire Dr. M's episode to my sensei Masaki Umai, who passed on last year, somewhere around June. And I got Hensai here so that whatever we talk, people can reflect on that, and the Kaizen part of it, they can improve on that. That's what my sensei taught me. So let me do my standard work that you, Dennis, taught me. That is the most important thing in TPS. So let me do the the standard work of introducing you. Nobody, you don't require introduction. You are a nuclear sailor, right? That is where you
That is
studied your
correct.
career. Nuclear
Nuclear sailor
submarine.
and submarines. Submarines. Yes.
See, my memory is not all that bad. I
In
remember
fact, I'll note this too. Every day, all these years later, I still wear my submarine warfare badge. It's a great
wow,
matter of pride for me.
proud of you. And that's a nuclear submarine, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so here we are on the fifth episode, and this is a prelude to a webinar. I changed it. I've evolved. I did a Kaizen on that and said, well, why restrict it to certain invitees? I throw it open to whoever is interested to listen to it globally. And I'm sure people will be interested and they know you. I tell you, it doesn't require any introduction. So here we go. So you're going to talk to us as a prelude so that people can dwell on that, ask you written questions first if they're
Hmm.
not able to join us for the date of the webinar, which I'll be announcing on my LinkedIn, and the time, the date, etc., will be announced. But if they are not able to attend it, there's sufficient time to give us the questions so that I'm sure you would love to answer this question. And the webinar, we will take the subjects, the questions as and when it comes. So that's the basic structure of a slight change in Dr. M's launch. It's not an invitation, it's shown up in webinars. And I need to introduce you. You did your Japanese course in Georgetown College. You are in Georgetown, right, Dennis?
I am based out of Georgetown. That's correct.
Yeah. And your industrial education in Kentucky.
That is
Georgetown
correct.
is in Kentucky, right?
Yes.
And believe me, I am keeping my fingers crossed that my first visit to US will be this September. I've never visited US, so I will come in the month of September. I have traveled from Europe eastward. Okay, a little bit to the west when I went to Middle East, but I have to touch base in US, and I will do that in September. So here is your illustrious experience. If you like to talk about it, I would like to talk about it more. That is 37 years, and I like to I like you to talk about more of it by looking at this picture, which I got with one of the when I did an episode with one of the research workers there. He came to me by talking about the secret of the sensei. And I saw this image. This was the Georgetown plant where you are, photographed in 1986 by photographer AP Photos. So you recall this moment? Any nostalgic memory about it?
Yeah. Basically, the Georgetown plant. There's a lot of misunderstanding about it, by the way. There are
Hmm.
many in America, at least, who think that it was our first plant, and it was not. We actually had some other plants before that. But what it was our first large vehicle plant that we built.
Hmm.
The very first plant that Toyota had in North America was we bought Atlas Manufacturing in Long Beach, California, very small plant. But we bought that plant out, so to speak, took down the Atlas sign, put up the Toyota sign. That was our first plant. But this was our first really big effort where we built a large vehicle manufacturing plant.
Hmm.
And at the time, it got tremendous news coverage, both in the USA and in the world. It was a major step forward
Hmm.
by Toyota. And so there was literally unending media and news and public
Hmm.
coverage. Now, that was the external part, right?
Hmm.
Internally, when I started with the plant, looked very much exactly like that right there, right? Just dirt and bulldozers. So I was at the beginning
Hmm.
of building that plant.
Hmm.
I was brought in basically doing the same kind of work that I do today, which is education, training, and development of the workforce. I've been there 36 years. It will be 37 next month, 1987, right? And so this stretches right back to that time period. In fact, maybe a little interest story on that. The building that I work in is called the North American Production Support Center. At that time, it was the training center for that Georgetown plant. And that was the very first building occupied on that whole site. Today, I am the only original member who I walked around that building before it was built, right? I'm the only original member who actually was there when when that was built and when it was first staffed, uh, who is still there. I was the youngest at the time. Today, I am the second oldest, right? But just to from the question you asked, briefly covering, what has happened since that time, since that picture, in the sense of my career. Well, I continue to workforce development, training, and education. The primary focus was in our skilled maintenance, our skilled team members who keep the plants running, right? And so I helped to get that startup in Kentucky. Not long after that, we started building additional plants in North America. And at that time, I began to support those plants starting up also. So that arriving from that picture until today, uh, Toyota has significantly expanded our whole North American footprint to many plants in Canada, US, and Mexico, what we call our North American region. And over that time, I've continued to work in education, training, and development. And my principal work, as you know, and as we talked about before, has been development of what we call today the FAME program, and specifically the FAME AMT, or the Advanced Manufacturing Technician program within FAME. It will be interesting to note that development has actually been an unbroken, continuous improvement activity. We never stopped a program and had a pause and started something new. We continued to problem solve and to continuously improve. And we just continue to phase change that program all the way up to what we have today, which is the FAME career pathway and FAME. So that covers a little bit of the Toyota start and the expansion in North America. and parallels a bit my path with that. Now, there have been many people helping with this. The team, we were very team oriented, many contributors along the way, but in that boat of progress, I was on one of those oars and was helping to bring that forward. And as we speak today, still with Toyota.
Great. And all the viewers, I would recommend you to get into Dr. M's podcast and episode 39. Dennis came and he spoke to us something we called something new under the sun. And that's where we covered the world's first education pathway designed with lean principles and practices. So please go through the episode too. And then we have you, Dennis, on the main topic. Let's hear the prelude. Let's see how far the gossips are true and what is the reality happening within Toyota. Over to you, sir. And thank you very much again. Thank you,
Let's
Dennis.
have at it. Would you like me to start out with a preliminary
Sure.
statement, or do you have a question that you would like to ask? Or
No, I just wanted to know that we have heard a lot about the emphasis of Toyota on processes and people. And of course, there is a statement that says that, I don't know whether I'm misquoting it, that it was the excellence of your processes that elevates the people within and develops them within. So what I'm looking at is your human resource development processes, which elevates the capability of the people inside. I mean, the best I know is, check me out if this equation is correct, that the performance is ability into motivation into process capability.
Mhm.
So,
And so,
I leave it to you to tell me the main topic of Toyota, the human resource development in Toyota. How do they do their career planning? How do they do their succession planning? How do they identify the talent? We can go on, but I'll leave it to you as a prelude to.
So I might start it this way. One might look at the issue like this, and that is that a company, any organization, is no more and no less than its people. People make everything happen, right? If it's a designing something, if it's a process, implementing a process, writing it, testing it, doing it, it all ultimately comes down to people, the ability of our people, the motivation of our people to do what's right, do what's best, and try to continuously strive for improvement. It's people. And so the company is no more or no less than the people. And what that brings us to is this aspect of human resource development. Of course, that little acronym is very common, right? HRD. But what it gets to is how does a company or how does an organization develop and continue to grow the capability of its people? And if I bring that to Toyota, I believe it would be, well, from a personal statement, it's certainly true. And I think it's a fair statement for the organization overall to say that we have a very high value in people development. In fact, if one looks at what I would call the 5 key business elements on which Toyota focuses to guide our operational performance, and which we embed into many of the systems and practices that we have. What are those 5 elements? Well, they are safety first, always first, right? Quality, productivity, cost, and then that element that makes all 4 of those happen, people development, HRD, right? So just from the very beginning, we both recognize and we include that developing our people
mm,
is one of the core
mm,
activities and one of the most critically important things that we do.
mm,
And then I think if you look forward into, well, what does that look like in action? What does that look like at the company? What does that look like on the floor and
mm,
in the offices?
mm,
I think would also be a fair overhead statement to say that we're pretty comprehensive in what we do. We don't just do it one way.
mm,
And we don't just do it with, well, let's have some training. Here's some training classes,
mm,
go to these training classes.
mm,
We approach it very comprehensively. We approach it strategically.
mm,
We incorporate it
mm,
into our initiatives in many different ways, but we
mm,
incorporate it into our initiatives as an element to help achieve that initiative. In other words, we don't just plan and say, here's an important goal.
mm,
Here's what, we want to do to accomplish this goal. We will take into account directly, often written into the plan, but
mm,
if not, very consciously planned into the work to accomplishment.
mm.
How do we develop our people to be able to reach this goal? So it's pretty wide ranging in how we look at training, look at education, look at strengthening the capability of our people, and how we leverage that into business outputs and company performance.
So since this is a prelude, Dennis, let me take this liberty of throwing some questions at you, and you're going to just answer me yes or no. You in your in Toyota, you clearly distinguish between training and education, yes or no?
No, we understand. Well, I'll just yes or no. I'll say no.
Okay. So do you have career planning?
I'm sorry. Say again, please.
Do you have career planning?
I still didn't.
Do you have career planning for your management people?
Yes, 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 yes. Career planning. I'm sorry. Yes, yes. We do have career planning.
And do you have succession planning?
Yes.
Do you have certain induction programs when you take people
If you
inside?
Yes, if you mean training like post-hire training after someone is hired, yes,
Do you have mentorship in Toyota?
yes.
You would therefore cover all this aspect in our webinar to tell us how do you make these people so committed to Toyota? Why does Toyota become the most sort of one of the most sort of, or the sort of, I leave that adjective or superlative adjective aside, but people look for employment in Toyota. The best I know from my sensei Masaki, they love to work over there. There's some sort of a joy in working over there. And
Absolutely.
there is some element of security over there. I'm sure in the webinar, that's all a part of human resource development. How do you create an environment where human beings can blossom and become the best version of themselves? If that is the objective of human resource development at Toyota. So we would cover all that in the webinar, Dennis. That anything more to add as an appeal to the audience? That what else is there with us in the webinar?
I'm sorry, again, on that very last question.
I said we would cover a lot of, because there's a huge spectrum, and you can give us a hint of, are we going to touch a little bit of cultural aspect?
Yeah. So if the response here is how do we come to that very large piece you described there, right? I might say first, I think there are several elements, right? I might say first that we work very hard to make Toyota a company that people want to work for, and that people want to stay at right? Make their career out, make their permanent career. Look at me, coming up on 37 years, right? That's not by accident. It's an incredible company for which to work. And so we put a lot of thought, a lot of effort into, is this a good company for our employees? Do we meet human needs? Do we meet the kind of needs people have for the work that they do? And the answer to that is, maybe no surprise. There's a number of things that we do, but here's what it boils down to. What it boils down to is, do I, as a worker for Toyota, as an employee, right? Do I look forward to coming into work? Do I feel like my work has value? Do I think that my work contributes to the success of the company and to the extended success of society? And so, because we're very conscious of that, we build that into what we do at Toyota. I might make this connection, by the way. So, why are we driven to do that? Well, there can be several answers to that, but I will tell you where the root is. The root is, if you look at the Toyota principles, it starts with what we call respect for people. And I believe that that aspect is well known and well associated with the Toyota approach, right? Respect for people, continuous improvement, and so on. And so, is that principle of respect for people, is that just a slogan? Is that just something to look good in print? Or is that a true value, a true principle? And that's what it is. I've been there for a long time. I know that answer. That is a true principle for us. And so, because we pursue that, that drives this whole, do we make the company a good place to work, right? That's the starting point.
Yeah,
but then beyond.
Yeah, go ahead. Complete
Oh,
your
just okay.
sentence.
That's the starting point, right? But
Yeah.
then beyond that, we leverage the capability of these people that love to work for the company, that are energized and motivated for working with the company. We then want to leverage their talent for the company. And not only do we want to leverage that talent, we want to grow that talent. So that's why we put so much thought and planning into how we develop people and the kind of programs that we have, and how we take that talent and we grow it through the years of their career, whether that's continuing to grow in the capability to do their job, or whether that is growing them as they move into higher positions with the company of leadership and management. So it's all very intentional.
So, Dennis, my last question is for this prelude, and we'll cover this up exhaustively during the webinar, is the starting point is respect for people, as you said. Now, my
Yes.
mischievous question, or the curiosity is, how do you get your human resource development to ensure that it becomes a part of the DNA of every employee in Toyota? I'm sure it's in your DNA, Dennis, the values of Toyota. How do you get that employee empowerment? And what have you, where they, and to put some jargon, management jargon, if you want to get the intrinsic need or the self-determination need that is theoretically said in many management books, but you all have been able to implement it. So there's a lot to cover. So starting from respect for people to getting into the DNA of every employee or your extended channel partners, how do you get the DNA within that is what we are looking forward to.
Well, I think that's an excellent question. And I think my first thought on that is comes from an old proverb, right? Which comes first, the chicken or the egg, right? And I'm going to expand this question just a little bit because we get this fairly often. It's not always directed at our training in HRD, but at our embrace altogether of the Toyota way and the Toyota production system, what the rest of the world calls lean, right? And that question is essentially how do you get that in? How do you maintain that? How do you keep your employees focused on that? How do you keep that value strong? And I'm going to say at a very high level, we have reached a point at Toyota where we don't have to work so much to make sure that it's ingrained, meaning that's our thought. Gee, I've got to change this culture. I've got to get people to get this culture. We don't, that's where almost all companies who are trying to implement lean are at. You know, it's, as you know, lean goes beyond a set of tools and processes. It goes to a mindset. It goes to a culture, right? But at Toyota, we have the blessing that we're over that mountain, and it becomes intrinsic to what we do. And I think that includes this value for respect for people, but also part of that respect is we develop capability, right? So as soon as someone comes into the company, they're going to be exposed to this entire value set in a few spoken ways, but in many unspoken ways. From day one of their employment, they're going to see and feel people living this value.
So that's what we are going to peep into, Dennis, during this webinar. So you take us through the looking glass and let us see what's happening inside Toyota, which we don't read in the books, but that's there, as you said. So that's my end of this question in the prelude. And looking forward to the webinar, which I will be announcing soon. So thank you very much again, Dennis. And we meet again very shortly. I'll publish this prelude, and I look forward to written questions from those who may not be able to attend because of the time zone difference. But then webinar will be announced, and we look forward to a lot of curiosity which is around there. Toyota is still a mystery. Somebody told me that, you know, if you ever want to write a book, you don't have to write anything. Just put on the front of the cover, Toyota, and it'll sell. Of course, he said something else that will also sell, which I'm not permitted to say over here as a public statement. Thank you very much, Dennis, and looking forward to a great webinar. And to all the viewers and listeners, incidentally, I have Spotified all these episodes on the Dr. M's launch, so you can not only view it, you can hear it while you're driving, while you're in the gym, and now that the Bluetooth has come out, while you're swimming, do whatever you want, even when you're in the nuclear submarine, probably. Thank you very much, Dennis. Thanks a lot, and take care. Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you very much.